Hey, this is Tommy John, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
You can put it on the board. Yes!
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the MTV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA, prime Angus, and Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and, of course, the king of all those massive cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had. Probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call. Find out what's for dinner. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. All right, and big welcome in to everybody listening in on all of our network affiliates from coast to coast. Big welcome to our friends waking up with us over in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM. Over in Auburn, Alabama, thanks for driving home with us on 12:30 a.m., and that is home of the Atlanta Braves, WAUD. Everybody else throughout the heartland out to the west, from Vegas to L.A. or L.A. to Vegas. Listen, thanks for joining us on 101.5 FM and 107.3 FM out to Honolulu, CBS Sports 1500 KHKA, and that's home of the Yankees, 49ers, and the Alabama Crimson Tide, and everybody else in all other markets. Thanks for joining us, plus on the streamers as well. How about this, folks? How about a little trivia right from the outset? Name, if you will, name if you can, the team that has 27 World Series champions. What team has 27 World Series champions? We've teamed up with our friends over at Vacation Buddies for this one. And this is for everybody in our listening audience. Our first 10 callers will have a shot to win 2 free nights in Las Vegas, 2 free nights in Branson, Missouri, or 2 free nights in Orlando, Florida. Which team in Major League Baseball has 27 World Series champions? Call 888-576-5777. That's 888-576-5777. 888-576-5777. If you know the answer, call that number right now for your chance to pick up 2 nights in Vegas, 2 nights in Branson, Missouri, or 2 nights in Orlando, Florida. And, of course, this is brought to you by Vacation Buddies and not by the radio station. So, folks, make sure you call 888-576-5777 right now. All right. Sticking with the baseball theme, it is weekend, but it's rivalry time. And because, look, the rivalries seem to happen all year long, but this is when the city teams play one another, and it gets a little bit of chaotic. Well, a little bit of chaos and chaotic mess out there. Let's kind of leave it like that, because that's usually what happens with these games. And whether it's this city or that city, I love the fact that the cities, they actually will part just like the Red Sea, right? Just like Moses parted the Red Sea. Well, that's what happens with some of these cities. And look, to be sure, of course, it's a bit controversial sometimes, and sometimes the rivalry, it tends to bring out the best and worst in people, but it doesn't include the sport's most time-honored blood feuds, such as the White Sox and Cubs and the Yankees and Red Sox and the Dodgers and Giants. Well, let's not put the White Sox and Cubs in there. We'll put the White Sox and the Royals. Boy, that is a heated one. How about the Cubs and Cardinals? And not only the Dodgers and Giants, how about the Dodgers and the Padres, too? It gets just downright ugly with these. And what I like about it is the fans really, really get into it. And I would say just as much as your Yankees, Red Sox, when you get the Yankees and the Mets. And let's focus on them for a little bit. Although the Yankees lead the series 80-66 in the regular season, the Yankees lead 4-1 in the postseason as well. Now look, the Subway Series checks a lot of boxes, according to CBS Sports, and it's a crosstown rivalry located, of course, in the biggest media market in the Western world. And let's face it, both of these teams are essentially leading their divisions. It is what it is, folks. I mean, you got two pretty good clubs. So consider this a theoretical World Series preview. Maybe. I don't know. I don't think the Yankees have enough pitching to get there. The Yankees are really struggling in the bullpen, and they really have one starting pitcher. Luckily, I've got him on my fantasy baseball team, and that would be Carlos Rodon. However, actually, no, we'll say two because Max Fried is over there. I forgot about Max Fried. Max Fried's a very good one. Boy, Atlanta should have never let that guy walk. They really should not have let him walk. But then again, Atlanta's playing really good ball. We're going to get to them in a bit. But nonetheless, when you look at the big money that's thrown around in these contracts and they affect these series, you say, yeah, Juan Soto with that $765 million deal, that's crazy to even imagine. And they just paid in the Yankees organization, they paid Max Fried, $280 million, I think $288 million bucks. The money that they throw around nowadays is absolutely absurd, as I see it. But ultimately, what do we have? We have 80-66 when the Yankees are 14 games up on the New York Metropolitans. And in case you don't know, the Mets got their colors by two other teams. Now remember, New York used to have three baseball teams. They had the Yankees, the Giants, and the Dodgers. So the Yankees obviously are still around, but the Dodgers and Giants had moved out to the West Coast. So New York needed a second team. So what do? They put together the New York Metropolitans and took the Dodger blue from the Dodgers, and they took the Giants orange from the Giants. And that's how the New York Mets got their colors, in case you didn't know. Pretty good bit of trivia. You could bedazzle your friends with that one, maybe win a couple of bets. Moving on to a better series, actually, the Cubs and White Sox. And the White Sox lead the series in the regular season 74-72, and they lead in the postseason 4-2. And that dates all the way back to the Wayback Time Machine in the World Series. So, and then we're talking 100 years ago. But here's the only intra-city rival on the CBS list. And this one features two teams separated by 13 stops on the subway, and we'll call it the L because the L is the subway and the subway is the L. And if you don't know what the L is, you better look it up. But as for the relevance and the current standings, it doesn't really matter. The Cubs are doing the heavy lifting there, and they're barely in first place. But when you look at these two teams one-on-one against each other, I mean, this rivalry really brings out the best in both of these squads. Even if one team is drastically below 500. Remember, the White Sox were the worst team in baseball last year, but now they've won 4 out of their last 5, and they're playing damn good ball. So the good news is that the rivalry is there, but the teams are very competitive. So the fans on both sides of town, they really got something to cheer for. Me, I was born about a mile and a half or so from Wrigley Field, but I'm a White Sox guy. So the Cubs lost me when I was a kid. I have to tell you, this is a fun series. If you've never been to a Cubs and White Sox games, folks, you're missing out. Now, over on the West Coast, of course, there's the Freeway Series, and that's the Dodgers and the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, of Orange County, of the Orange Curtain, of the Santa Ana Riverbed, with a rock pile out in center field being the Angels, the longest name in baseball. And the Angels actually lead that series 75-73 in the regular season. I mean, that is kind of a shocker to me, but then again, you never know what the hell's going to happen. Anyway, the Dodgers, of course, are the reigning World Series champions, so that doesn't really do a whole hell of a lot for the rivalry because the Dodgers are clearly leaps and bounds better than the Angels, who, well, gave up show me the money, Shohei Ohtani, and they don't have Mike Trout in the lineup again because he's constantly injured every year. Here's an interesting thing, folks. Every year, Mike Trout has been on the injured list or disabled list, or call it what you will. It doesn't matter. He can't play for one reason or another. It's either a broken finger, a broken this, a broken that, a hangnail. I don't know what it is. But Mike Trout's career although it has been pretty good, has been flushed down the toilet with substandard ownership in Anaheim. And you can't blame the general manager, Perry Manassian. You have to blame Artie Moreno because Artie has made a dumpster fire out of the Angels, and he won't let Perry make the moves, in my opinion, that he needs to move. So unfortunately, he won't let him spend any money. He won't let him do anything. So the Dodgers are constantly getting all the press in Southern California. Even when the Angels won the World Series in 2002, it was the same thing. The Dodgers still got all the press. And honestly, it's a little embarrassing. Artie Moreno took the team over after the World Series win in 2003. And Artie hasn't done a damn thing, in my opinion, for this team. And Artie should just sell the team. Seriously, sell the team. A lot of people in the South Side of Chicago are saying the same thing for the current ownership group. But, you know, the one thing that they probably should do is fire the general manager, because the general manager was clearly the wrong guy. Clearly the wrong guy. They should have done something else. Hell, they could have put Ozzie Guillen in there, at least as the GM, if they didn't want to deal with him on a day-to-day basis on the management side. But the fans like him, the players like him, and the fans would come out and support him. So the Angels have a very similar problem in ownership that the White Sox do, but the White Sox problem is with the GM and not with the owners, and whereas the Angels' problems with the owner and not the general manager. How do you like that? But when we come back, we're going to pick this up with the Cardinals and the Royals. But there's another real heated rivalry there, despite it being a little lopsided on the record side. Back here in a few minutes on The Circus. Lots more to come. Don't go anywhere. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit history and acceptance by a lender. If you choose to apply for a loan through us, a consumer report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average and best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com. Folks, make sure you check them out. All right, a big welcome back, everybody. Radio, TV, streaming. Everybody actually streaming on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, YouTube, Stitcher, Deezer, etc., so forth. Thanks for joining us there. Also on Facebook, a big hello to our friends at Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. Folks, if you don't know what that is, check that out. It's a fun group for your favorite restaurants, recipes, favorite foods, and let's face it, it's from all over the world, not just in Chicagoland. And by the way, folks, don't spam the page because I am the administrator and I will cancel your post if you're trying to spam it. So don't do it. No. All right, and welcome back to everybody else that is watching on television and listening on the radio. Big hello to our friends over on 101.5 FM and, of course, 103 or 107.3 FM on Highway Country. Make sure you check that out, folks. That's home of the Raiders and home of the Vegas Golden Knights. All right, back here talking baseball, and it's rivalry time in Major League Baseball where the teams in the cities or across states and whatnot, they square off, and these are their allegedly most hated rivals and probably the biggest rivals for TV markets and radio markets and all that fun stuff. So as we look at these rivalries, we say which ones are great. Well, we've already covered New York, the Yankees and Mets, the Cubs and the White Sox, also covered the Dodgers and the Angels. How about the Cardinals and the Royals? I mean, look, these two are no strangers in the grand scheme of things, and the Royals and Cardinals have faced each other in their modern era in a World Series as well. Now, the Cards lead the series by a pretty big margin, 76-52, but make no mistake, it is the Royals that is the better team right now. Even though the records are just about the same, the Royals clearly have the bigger upside here. And look, these two teams, of course, they do play in Missouri. Kansas City does play on the Missouri side, I should say, not the Kansas side. So, yes, it is still a Missouri versus Missouri, kind of a misery, if you will. It's one of those kind of things. However, when you look at their positions in their central divisions, as they both are, they're both right in the thick of everything. And look, we have here a third and final rivalry pairing up between the teams down the road here. And listen, these two teams, they have met in the World Series, and that was back in 1985, in case you don't know. And a friend of the Sports Circus, that'd be Britt Saberhagen, was a very big piece of that puzzle. And of course, let's face it, the Royals ended up winning that one. And the Royals do have the upper hand, only one-on-one like that, but the Cardinals and St. Louis has, of course, more World Series wins. But that's a fun one, folks. If you've never seen those two, that's a good one. Another good one is the Astros and Rangers. I mean, look, it's basically Houston against Dallas, and that's kind of what the state really is anyway. The people in Dallas say this is the real Texas, and everybody in Houston says, no, we're the real Texas because we own the coast. Well, I don't know. I'm not sure about that because all the big money is in Big D and in Dallas. They've got pretty much all that. But the Rangers also, here's another interesting thing, another one of these two games that separate the two teams sort of thing. And these teams have 280 games between them. I mean, that is a lot. So this was 141-139 in favor of the Rangers. So I mean, that is a very hotly contested rivalry series. Of course, the Lone Star Classic dates back to June 8th of 2001 when the Astros and Rangers met for the first time. Back then, though, the Astros were in the National League. Now, of course, it's no longer an interleague affair, but they share the same division in the American League West. So that rivalry just keeps on going and going. I kind of like that. But in 2003, of course, they met in the postseason for the first time, and the Rangers did beat the Astros in 7 games to win the pennant. So, I mean, look at it this way. This one features the best trophy going in Major League Baseball, but not the World Series trophy. So this is a really fun rivalry with two teams that really don't want to go into the rebuild process. They've kind of rebuilding on the fly. It's hard to imagine the Rangers being just a season and a half, not removed from a World Series, and you scratch your head and say, how the hell are they rebuilding? Well, they are, but they're doing it on the fly very, very quickly. And the Astros seem to be doing the same thing, even with the loss of Kyle Tucker to the Northsiders in Chicago. It just seems like the Astros just don't miss a beat. They just keep on playing well. So that's a fun rivalry between those two squads. How about the Ohio one between the Cincinnati Reds and the Clevelands? I don't want to see the Guardians. I'd rather see them as the Indians. We'll just call them the Clevelands. And so that series all time is 76-59 in favor of Cleveland, much to your surprise, with the Reds with those World Series wins, right? Of course, we can't count the 1919 World Series because that was the fix. Anyway, it's the Battle of Ohio between the Fighting Franconas and the Clevelands. But the series is in Cincinnati, the one that's being played right now. And of course, it will not necessarily define anything, but what it's going to do is it brings a little bit of Terry Francona-ism back to Cleveland because he was there for 11 years. And of course, Cleveland is trying to stay within spitting distance of the first place Tigers, which that division, the American League Central, will change spots several times over the last, or better yet, over the next several months. Because I don't really think there's a standout team between Cleveland, Minnesota, and Kansas. Well, Kansas City should win the division. And then you have another squad in there being Detroit. So you got four teams that really will contend. And I think it's just going to be who really loses the least amount of games in their division. And it's probably going to be a tiebreaker situation at the end of the season. But the Reds and Guardians is a very good series. And in fact, Cleveland has won or tied the series with Cincinnati every year for the last, are you ready for this? The last decade. It hasn't even been one-sided beyond that, but I'll tell you what, it has certainly been one-sided over the last decade. How about the Bay Series? How about well, you can't really say the Oakland A's anymore because now they play in Sacramento. And the A's do lead the series against the Giants 76-72 in the regular season, and the A's lead 13-7 in the postseason, if that tells you anything. So there have been some World Series games played there too. Now, the A's relocation, of course, to Sacramento, of course, at some point in the next couple of years or so, they'll be in Las Vegas, right here in Las Vegas, playing on the site of the Tropicana Hotel and Casino on Vegas Boulevard and Tropicana, which that groundbreaking has already happened. They're building a gigantic dome over there, which technically is kitty corner to the T-Mobile Arena. The T-Mobile Arena, of course, being where the Vegas Golden Knights play, and that being a couple of blocks and across the freeway from where the Raiders play. So they basically are putting all of these teams in one spot. However, when we get a basketball team here, because we will have a new franchise from the NBA, and they're likely going to play right next to the Sahara, and that it will be between the Fontainebleau and the Sahara, and that will be a new stadium. I know the people that own that project, and they have already gotten the approval to build the stadium, so that is where the basketball stadium is going to be. And, well, who knows? Maybe more corruption comes to Las Vegas. I don't know. Maybe it's that, or maybe a little bit of... Show me the money! Probably a little bit of that. That's what I'm thinking. But anyway, going back to this, I completely digressed here with the A's moving to Las Vegas from Sacramento by way of Oakland, of course. This one is a very close series. And, of course, these two clubs for decades just been staring at each other across the bay, fighting for, I guess, their turf, so to say. And let's face it, San Francisco, it's much nicer over there than Oakland. Oakland finally says, what's interesting, Libby Schaaf goes, the mayor of Oakland, we're a baseball-first city, and that's why they got rid of the Warriors. So the Warriors play right down the street from where the San Francisco Giants play. And then Libby Schaaf says again, we're a baseball-first city. So what they do, they shipped off the Raiders out of town, and the only place that the Raiders could go was right here to Vegas, even though we didn't want them here. And then Libby Schaaf says, we're a baseball city first. Well, guess what? There go the A's, and now the A's go to Sacramento and then to Las Vegas. So the moral of this story is, Libby Schaff, you don't know diddly you know what about sports, and you don't really care about sports, in my opinion, because you've shipped off all your sports franchises to other cities, and that is a terrible, terrible example of a mayor for any city in America. She gets the extended booze. Yeah, yeah, okay, and there goes that one. All right, so anyway, the Giants are surprise contenders in, of course, the NL West, which is clearly the toughest division in baseball. I mean, look, the Dodgers are playing great, defending world champions. The Giants are playing surprisingly well. The Padres are playing very well. And the Diamondbacks are steady as they come, and they probably play the best brand of baseball in baseball. Torey Lovello's got those guys playing small ball. They can hit for power, hit for average. It's basically a 5-tool player team. They're loaded with guys that could basically do everything. So when you think about what's going on with the Giants, I mean, look, they're playing in a very tough division. And even the A's are actually above 500, and somehow they're just playing great ball. And so, look, don't overlook the Giants and A's. These guys can play. Tell you what, folks, when we come back, we're going to head out over to the East Coast, and we're going to over to Pennsylvania. We talk baseball over there. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on the Sports Circus. Back in a few. I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime, nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it out here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello Americans, it's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time, that's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. B-E-E-P-I-N autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP-TV studio, AAMP television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guests, our prior guests, recorded shows, which are found on all streaming platforms, as well as check out the partners. Lots of great partners over there. One of our favorites is Al's Number One Italian Beef at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. That's Al's Number One Italian Beef, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. If you can't get over there for some great food, check them out at alsbeef.com. That's alsbeef.com. They are the creators of that world-famous Chicago Italian beef sandwich. Created over 100 years ago, and Al's has been in business since 1938. Folks, check them out, 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy, or at alsbeef.com. Of course, they get the super applause. Yes! All right. Heading on over to the East Coast and sticking with baseball rivalry because we can. We'll get into the betting on all this baseball stuff in just a little bit. And so coming in at 8th, according to CBS Sports, in the list of rivalries, it's not even near the top, is the Philadelphia Phillies and the Pittsburgh Pirates. All-time series. Now, this goes way, way back. The Pirates lead the series 1,230 wins to Philadelphia's 1,000 and... Oh, shoot. That's right, 1,085. I was reading something else. Apparently, this goes back to when we had the Philadelphia Athletics and the Philadelphia Phillies, etc. Yeah, so it's 1,230 to 1,085. Look at it that way. It's a substantial difference. You're talking 145 games. That's a big, big difference in favor of the Pirates. And, of course, the Phillies are really trying to get their 4th playoff spot in a row, and they've been playing pretty good ball. They just seem to have problems in the bullpen, and they've got everything else put together despite Aaron Nola having a terrible season so far. Of course, I have him on my fantasy baseball team. Well, that really hasn't gotten me a whole lot of wins, but then again, the Phillies are clearly the better team between the two, and the only thing the Pirates really have right now is Paul Skeens and a really nice ballpark in which they play, but Paul Skeens is arguably the best pitcher in baseball. Man, this kid is legit. Won the Rookie of the Year last year. He started the All-Star game for the National League last year as a rookie, and he had only been up about, 5-6 weeks before the All-Star game. Truly that good. He's really a generational pitcher. I mean, the good news is that Skeens is slated to start one of the games in the series, but then again, the bad news is that, well, the Phils and Buccos, as we know them, is heavily tilted towards the Phillies wave right now, and it's more of a cross-state pollution than pollination at this point. In a total of 280 players that have played for both teams. Look, Andrew McCutchen and Bailey Faltar are still playing, but most people in today's time would rather play for the Phillies organization because the Pirates, just when you thought they had a couple of good pieces, you say, well, O'Neal Cruz is another real big bright spot for Philadelphia. And O'Neal Cruz is sort of Philadelphia's, or better yet, Pittsburgh's answer for Ellie De La Cruz, the most exciting player in baseball that plays with Cincinnati. Of course, that is a very heated rivalry, kind of like Cubs, Cardinals, and Yankees, and Red Sox, and White Sox, and Royals. Well, Pirates, here's an interesting thing. The Pirates and the Reds, they feature in the modern era the most brawls between teams out of all others. And I kind of like that one. For me, that is kind of a fun thing. I think a base brawl, and I like when pitchers pitch inside. I'm a former pitcher, and I pitched inside. I own the inside part of the plate. I hit a lot of guys. Too bad. If your hands, here's something that a lot of people you probably don't know. If a batter's hands get hit by the pitcher and the batter's hands are over home plate, that's not a hit batsman, folks. That is a strike. In case you didn't know, if the player's arm is over home plate and the player's arm is hit, that is a strike. It is not a hit batsman automatic free pass to first base. So you got to be careful if you're going to try to steal a man on base, so to say, just by being in the batter's box. If you get hit and you're over the plate, that is a strike. The problem is umpires really don't call that. And that's not really fair to pitchers because pitchers, that's their home plate. And there is an area between the batter's box and home plate also that the pitcher technically owns. The batter's supposed to be where? In the batter's box. Well, they say, well, his feet are supposed to be in the batter's box. Well, his body is supposed to be in the batter's box. And it's not fair to the pitcher that the batters will dive across the plate and get hit and somehow magically end up on first base. That is a bunch of garbage. But anyway, back to this Phillies and Pirates thing. The Pirates are the clear-cut leaders in the series, but the Phillies are the clear-cut champions of that one. Here's an interesting matchup. Now, it's not as you would think it with the Red Sox and Braves until you start thinking about old school baseball. The Red Sox and Braves, this is a real one, just like the Cubs and White Sox and the Yankees and the Mets of current and the A's and the Giants. Think about this. The rivalry hook here is that the Braves used to share the city with Boston with the Red Sox, but that hasn't been the case since 1952. As a matter of fact, my cousin was a 10-year All-Star catcher for the Boston Braves. How do you like that? It's Phil Macy. Check him out. Phil, M-A-S-I, Phil Macy. 10 years, played in the league, also was a catcher for my beloved Chicago White Sox. So, yeah, that's a real thing, folks. And look, the games, well, they figure to be pretty important to both teams as they match up because both are fighting for, I don't know, some kind of a playoff situation, even though it's early in the season. But the reality is the Braves got off to a horrific start, and they've really been the cardiac Braves. They've been playing really good ball. And the Red Sox are playing pretty good ball as well. So you think back to Chris Sale, of course, he came from the White Sox. He went to the Red Sox, won a World Series there, and then pitches now for the Atlanta Braves. And so Chris Sale is one of those guys that has a dog in the fight on both teams because he's won with Boston. No real ill will there. And he'll be pitching against his former team, being the Red Sox. But this is a very intriguing matchup, and I love the fact that the Red Sox and Braves have this still going, despite they haven't played each other in the league, in the same city, nonetheless, since 1952. That's kind of a cool one. How about the border war between the Twinkies and the Brewers? You'd say, well, okay, they don't play in the same state, but they do play, well, I guess the river being right next to Minneapolis, St. Paul, right on the west side of St. Paul. So you say Twin Cities, well, okay. Well, that river is right next to the Wisconsin border. And so you can almost say it's similar to the Royals and the Cardinals. It's always fun when the Twins and Brewers get together. They used to play in the league, or better yet, well, they played in the same league in the same division a while back until the Brewers went to the National League. But it's kind of fun when you look at these two squads because, look, when the Brewers and Twins were in the American League Central, they really played hard against one another. And this is kind of like when the Vikings played Green Bay, the same idea. And so, again, they played in the same division, and the Twinkies and the Brewers played in the same division too. And let's face it, the Twins come in on a roll after a very slow start, and the Brewers are certainly treading water, but they're very relevant and right in the thick of the playoff run for the National League Central. And so this is a real nice one, and you can include this in that interstate, intercity kind of a situation because, let's face it, they're both at either end of Wisconsin in this case. But the one that doesn't make sense to me is the Padres and Mariners, how this is even in this discussion. And the Mariners lead at 68-63 in the regular season, and it's more of a newly branded Vedder Cup, named for, of course, Eddie Vedder, Pearl Jam's frontman. Eddie Vedder, and I got a funny story about him. And, of course, really, though, any kind of the Vedder Cup in Major League Baseball should be a matter between the Mariners and Cubs, if anything, because that's where he's from. He's from Chicago. But, of course, a very worthy charitable endeavor, so we'll go ahead and let it pass. On the field, it's a compelling clash. Of course, you've got great pitching against really good hitting. And the Mariners probably lead the world in pitching. They probably have the best starting rotation. But the Padres, man, they just knocked the cover off the ball. So that's a fun one to watch. And by the way, another one which doesn't make a lot of sense, are the Tigers and Blue Jays. I mean, why is that one even mentioned in this rivalry situation? I could see the Orioles and Nationals, yeah, that one, because you're talking D.C. and Maryland right there. How do the D-backs and Rockies join the party? I don't know. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever, even when the D-backs are killing them, and the Rocks are probably the worst team in baseball. Actually, they are the worst team in baseball. I don't know how some of these rivalries or some of these, they don't qualify. They shouldn't even be on the list. CBS Sports, I really think you made a mistake with adding those in there. But then again, that's just my opinion, and I'm entitled to it. But from a betting side, why in the world would anybody want to bet the Rockies over anybody at this point? Because they smell. I mean, they're terrible. They really are bad. I mean, in fact, the Rocks will probably surpass the White Sox, as I mentioned previously, as the worst team from a year ago with a worse record. All right, going to dig into some of this. I'll give you the Eddie Vedder story in just a few minutes, folks. It's kind of funny. Back here in a few minutes on The Circus. Don't go anywhere.
Do you know someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. B-E-E-P-I-N autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. Folks, again, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for upcoming guests, prior guests. Also, check out the store. There's a store tab at the top. Lots of great American-made products, hats, t-shirts, coats, sweatpants, travel mugs, pillows, mouse pads, you name it, they're all there. Thesportscircus.com. Click on store right across the top. There is a toolbar there. A shameless plug, of course, for the Sports Circus. Hey, listen, people like our items, and they're American-made on top of it. All right. Welcome back to everybody. And by the way, for everybody driving back and forth to Las Vegas or to Los Angeles on Interstate 15, big welcome back to everybody on Highway Country Radio 101.5 FM and 107.3 FM, plus everybody in Atlanta, WDJY over in Auburn, Alabama. Again, War Eagle, 1230 on the AM dial, home of the Atlanta Braves. That's WAUD and everybody else. By the way, listen, folks, if you can answer this trivia question, we partnered up with Vacation Buddies to offer you the potential of 2 free nights in Las Vegas, 2 free nights in Branson, Missouri, or 2 free nights in Orlando, Florida. If you can answer this very simple question, and let's see if you get it. What player from the National Basketball Association, from the NBA, what player from the NBA played for the Chicago White Sox? Was that A, Charles Barkley, B, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, C, Shaquille O'Neal, or D, Michael Jordan? Which player played for the Chicago White Sox from the NBA? Was it any one of those guys? Was it Shaq? Was it Kareem? Was it Barkley? Was it Michael Jordan? 888-576-5777. Call that number right now. 888-576-5777. 888-576-5777. If you have the answer to that trivia question, hey, you may pick up a couple of nights in either Vegas, Branson, Missouri, or Orlando, Florida. And of course, Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with this radio station, in case you're keeping score. All right. Speaking of the odds and scores and whatnot, let's just shift over to the betting world. And we say, all right, there's a little bit of parity now in baseball. We had the early teams that really got out of the gate fast. The Dodgers got out real fast. The Padres got out real fast. And, well, let's face it, things have kind of balanced out just a little bit. Now, the odds to win the World Series, and I'll get to the Eddie Vedder story, I promise, right after this. So, the odds to win the World Series are as follows. Right now, we're going to start as far down as we think that teams really have a shot to get to the World Series. And we're going to start at the Milwaukee Brewers. Now, with BetMGM, they're 66-1. Yeah, we believe they have a shot. And they are 70-1. Yeah, 66-1 at MGM, and they're 70-1 at Bally's. The Tampa Bay Rays are always in contention somehow. They're at 60-1 and 65-1 respectively. The Blue Jays are at 40-1 and 65-1. So if you're going to bet the Blue Jays to win a World Series, you probably want to find yourself over at Bally's, because you're getting an extra 25-1 at 65-1. That's crazy. Now the Giants, who are playing really good ball, and they're very consistent, they're at 45-1 at MGM and 50-1 at Bally's. Better price over there. The Clevelands are 35-1 at MGM and 40-1 at Bally's. But there's a big disparity in these prices until, of course, you hit the Royals. The Royals are both at 40-1 at BetMGM and Bally's. The Twinkies are 45-1 at MGM and 40-1 over at Bally's. So the better bet there, of course, being at BetMGM. The D-backs, I got to tell you, folks, the D-backs are a steal at 35-1 at Bally's and 33-1 at BetMGM. May want to put a couple of bucks on that one, folks. The Orioles, boy, they stink right now. I'm not really sure what their deal is. 50-1 at MGM, yet 35-1 at Bally's. The Mariners, with that great pitching, 18-1 at MGM and 20-1 over at Bally's. So there's a big price differences here. The Red Sox 25-1 at BetMGM and 20-1 at Bally's. So you ask yourself, why is there a big price difference? I'll tell you why. First of all, here in Las Vegas, before we get to essentially the top 10, part of the issue is that when you look at the MGM Grand Resort, where it's situated, well, the MGM Grand Resort is technically the first big hotel. When you got out of the airport in Las Vegas, that's the first mega resort. As you get out of the airport, you turn down Paradise, and you get yourself, actually it's really Swanson, so it's the next street over, but you turn down the first busy street from the airport, which is Tropicana, and the first big hotel you can get to is the MGM. So they get a lot of action right there if it's in-person betting. Now, Bally's, which used to be Bally's, which is now the Horseshoe, over at Flamingo and Las Vegas Boulevard, they got a little bit less because they were further in, but they're center strip. So now, it's owned by Horseshoe, and now Bally's has other properties in the Las Vegas Valley. So it's a very different argument, but MGM gets a little bit different action than the Bally's group. Let's look at it that way. Because actually Bally's owns the Tropicana baseball field, the field that's being built over at Tropicana and Las Vegas Boulevard for the Athletics. So that's another discussion for another time. Now moving on, the Red Sox, I said they're 25-1 or better yet, they're 22-1 at BetMGM and 20-1 at Bally's. The Houston Astros are 25-1 to win the World Series at BetMGM, but 20-1 at Bally's. Nobody believes in the Astros. The Padres are at 20-1, who start off really hot, and they're 18-1 at Bally's, better price over there at BetMGM. The Rangers are at 22-1 at MGM and 18-1 at Bally's. The Cubs 16-1 at MGM, 15-1 at Bally's. The Tigers are the opposite. They're they're 14-1 at BetMGM and 15-1 at Bally's. The Phillies are 12-1 at both places. The Braves 16-1 at MGM and 12-1 at Bally's. And the New York Mets are 9-1 at MGM and 10-1 at Bally's. The Yankees are 7.5-1 at BetMGM and 7-1 at Bally's. And the Dodgers leading the pack are basically 2.5-1 at MGM and 2.25-1. So they're plus 240 at BetMGM. Put up 100 and you can win 240 plus your original bet back. And Bally's, of course, put up 100 and you win 225 plus your original bet. But the reality is they've got the Dodgers still as the leader in this betting, which I'm not so sure that's the case. I would say, in my opinion, there are 3 or 4 teams that you could bet out of that pool below the Dodgers, and you could essentially make an even money bet, an even priced bet at all those other teams, those maybe 3 or 4 other teams. I don't think the Dodgers are going to win the World Series, folks. They have bullpen problems. They do have health issues with their starting rotation as well. They just keep putting next man up mentality. But the Dodgers, they can certainly hit. I just don't think that they can pitch kind of like the Phillies. The Phillies have problems with their closing the games out. And there are other teams out there, if you check out, well, better yet, if you are interested in the whole picks idea, you can hit up info@thesportscircus.com for information from Sal the Bookmaker on ideas for the World Series and World Series betting and so forth. And there's some good information to be had over there, info@thesportscircus.com. And folks, in case you don't know, I am Sal the Bookmaker, and I'm pretty darn good at this prognostication thing. All right, and then when we get done with this, show me the money! That's where that one goes. So real quick, about that Eddie Vedder story. So I'd mentioned that was the rivalry between the Padres and the Mariners. They're playing the Eddie Vedder Classic. So I went to 92 MTV Video Music Awards over at Pauley Pavilion, right at the UCLA campus. I asked my friend to get me a couple of tickets. I was trying to impress a young lady, and I said, all right, well, let's see if we can get a couple of tickets to the VMAs. I went to the 88 ones. It was a lot of fun. So I went to the 92. Actually, I had my buddy Greg, who used to be a bass player for Crosby, Stills, and Nash. I said, Greg, get me a couple of tickets to this thing. And so he got me a couple of tickets. I got there early with my date, and it was so far from the stage, I thought I was going to be right in front of the stage. And it was a really bad situation in my brain. I'm losing my mind. This is back before everybody had cell phones on them. They had the bricks back then. and so I wasn't going to get in with a brick. So I'm sitting there probably about an hour before showtime, really excited about seeing the show. I didn't know where I was sitting, and then I got to my seats with my date, and I'm just really embarrassed because I'm thinking, oh, we got great seats and all this other crap. And so as the time's passing, maybe 20, 30 minutes, and the people are filing in all around and so forth, I'm seeing the pit fill up right below the stage. There were two stages, left and right stage. I thought we were going to be sitting on the left stage. Well, in any event, the people start filing in around, and here we are right about showtime for the awards to start. And there was some people sitting behind me, and this dude was just kicking the back of my chair. He's just kicking the chair. And I'm losing my mind because I don't like the idea. It's like being on the airplane and having a little kid or somebody just kick the chair in the back of you. You just want to turn around and... But nonetheless, so I turn around. I finally turn around. I'm like, hey, man, what's going on? He goes, I'm sorry. Sorry. I said, well, you keep kicking the chair. Are you okay? He goes, yeah, man, I'm okay. Anyway, a few minutes later, he starts doing the same thing. And I turn around. I'm getting a little irritated. So I'm like, hey, man, you got to go to the bathroom? There's one right down the little hallway there. He goes, no, I'm okay. I'm like, all right, fine, man. Cool, just let me know. Anyway, so a couple minutes later, he's kicking the chair again. I turn around, I'm like, seriously, are you okay? He goes, we're just a little bit nervous because we're on first. I'm like, what do you mean we're on first? Well, it happened to be Eddie Vedder and Pearl Jam was sitting directly behind me, and those seats was in the talent area where it was the Red Hot Chili Peppers next to them, the Pearl Jam next to them, Magic Johnson was sitting 4 seats from me, Eric Clapton was about 6 or 7 seats away from me, but I was sitting right in the middle of the talent section, which I had no idea. So in the meantime, I'm really getting irritated until all this stuff happened. Then I realized where I was, like, oh my God, I couldn't believe it. Greg really took care of me, and of course, this is for you, Greg. But it was a really great moment because when he was kicking the back of the chair, I was thinking,
why isn't this an awkward moment?
But realizing that they were the first time up, that was their first time on the big stage for the MTV VMAs, and that was Eddie Vedder. That's my Eddie Vedder story, and of course, another hometown guy from Chicago, just like myself. Well, that's going to do it for the circus today. I'm your Ringmaster Sal. We'll see you in 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days. Follow Mom's advice and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. That's 800-814-8628.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. B-E-E-P-I-N autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.